Hello, everyone. It is my pleasure, actually. It's my very distinct pleasure to bring to this space today a man who has done such tremendous work that's admirable for anyone who is a scholar. And for anyone who is listening today who is not a scholar, I guarantee you that by the time this meeting is over, you will be won over to academia. And you would want to speak with this man whose bio I have seen, and I am really taken by. And for everyone who has seen my work, you know that what I like to do is to bring into this space people who are doing such tremendous work in their fields. And I do that in the hope that as often as I bring those people and as much as we speak, everyone will be inspired so that we can all be the best that we can in the work that we do, in the roles in which we find ourselves. So today it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Dr. Chikezie Uzuegbunam, who teaches media studies and journalism in South Africa. He's the MA program coordinator in the School of Journalism and Media Studies at Rhodes University in South Africa. And he also serves as the deputy head of school for 2024 at the same department. He holds a PhD in media studies from the prestigious University of Cape Town in South Africa, as well as a master's, bachelor's, and diploma degrees in mass communication from Oni-Eseleh University in Nigeria. Over the past decade, Dr. Uzuegbunam has built a track record of teaching, consulting, and researching in Nigeria and South Africa. He completed a postdoctoral research fellowship as a Carnegie Fellow at the Institute for Humanities in Africa, where he worked with the Research Collective on Artificial Intelligence at the 4IR in Africa. He has published prolifically with over 30 peer-reviewed academic outputs in the areas of digital technology, young people and media, and popular culture, politics, health communication, and misinformation. We will have a lot to discuss around these issues today. And in addition to his academic publications, he has contributed numerous op-eds and essays to mainstream media and critical blogs. His latest book, which we will also be discussing today, is titled Children and Young People's Digital Lifeworlds, Domestication, Mediation, and Agency. It was published by Palgrave Macmillan under the book series of the International Association for Media and Communication Research. Dr. Uzuegbunam's work has been supported by the Carnegie Corporation of New York, the Ford Foundation, the Coimbra Group of Universities in Europe, the Mellon Foundation, IAMCR, University of Bergen, Rhodes University, and University of Cape Town. He's a member of the editorial board of African Journalism Studies, the Annals of the International Communication Association, and the Journal of Media Library Education. He is an active member of organizations such as the International Communication Association, the South African Communication Association, where he sits on the executive leadership team, and the African Council for Communication Education, the International Association for Media, the Communications Research, the Association of Internet Researchers, the Internet Society, African Studies Association, and the Society for Research on Adolescence. He's an affiliate scientist and a member of the membership advisory team of the International Panel for the Information Environment, which is headquartered in Switzerland. Dr. Uzuegbunam has been a visiting fellow at Oxford University, the University of Cape Town, University of Groningen, Strathmore University, and Germain University. He's a fellow of the Nigerian School of Internet Governance and has served as a member of the Volunteer Expert Group and co-lead education and research for developing Nigeria's national artificial intelligence policy. Dr. Zeb, when I just reading your bio, I got tired. Are you tired doing all this work?
I am tired too. Can we get on with why we're here?
You are definitely prolific. Incredibly prolific in all of your work. And I'm wondering how you get the time to do all of that.
Thank you
How do
very
you
much,
do it?
Dr. Hero. First of all, thank you for having me. I'm really pleased to finally meet you. I was introduced to your work by my friend, Professor Martha Agenti. And I've been, well, I went through some of the previous interviews you've had and also Googled you and seen some of your work. So I'm really pleased to be having this conversation with you and to say and to also say well done for all the work you do. How I do it, I don't know. I've been doing this for 11 years, and I would just say that the passion that I have for my work ties in with this popular axiom. They say, you never work a day when you are doing what you love, you know. So sometimes it's not really work for me. It's a pleasure doing it. I find fulfillment doing it, and I've been doing this for 11 years, like I said. And all I have ever wanted to be was a teacher, you know, from when I was young. So yeah, I think it makes it easier to, yeah, when you have the passion and when you have the drive to do it.
That is incredible. So did you always know that you will become a scholar? It is one thing to say, I always wanted to teach,
Mm,
but you are more than that. You're not just teaching. You are really, you really epitomize the definition of what a scholar is.
mm,
I also, you talked about, Googling me. I also did look you up as anyone will do who is doing what I'm doing right now.
mm,
And one of the things that I can say is that I don't say it lightly when I express that you are indeed a scholar. Your writing, your research, and your teaching. And added to that, your administrative work in the university, which
mm,
is why I asked you if you really went tired. But when did you know that you would be all of this?
mm. I would say, well, growing up, I was really drawn to to the priesthood, so my earliest admiration was, the priesthood, and I grew up wanting to be a priest, and also everybody around me thought I was going to be a priest, really. But when I advanced through my early education, I think somewhere around my senior secondary school, yeah, senior secondary school, I began to be drawn to the idea of teaching. But those days I didn't think I had such lofty ideas about being like a lecturer in a university. I really just wanted to be a teacher, like a secondary school teacher. And then I remember one of my mentors, one of the teachers in my secondary school those days, when I shared with her that I wanted to be a teacher, and she said, "No, you mustn't say that. No, you can't be this. You can't be this thing we are doing here. You must aspire higher. Maybe if you say you want to be a lecturer in a university, then then I can accept that." Then I said, okay. But then thinking about becoming a lecturer came later when I entered into the university for my diploma studies. I did diploma first, pre-degree diploma, before I did the undergrad program, the bachelor's program. It was then that I also was inspired by my lecturers, and I said, okay, if I can be a secondary school teacher, then I definitely want to be a lecturer. So that was when the idea to be a lecturer started. And what I discovered was that the more I studied, I finished my diploma and then went in for my BSc. Then the more I studied, the more I realized that I really had passion for teaching, for imparting knowledge. And so I started to take it serious, and I determined that immediately after my NYSC, that I wasn't going to delay or, try to find a job. I was just going to go straight into my master's, and after master's, PhD. So that was the way that I really pictured it in my head, and that's the way that I did it. It was only in the middle of my master's that I got an appointment to be an academic staff at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and also do my master's alongside, and yeah, the rest is history.
One of the things that I find interesting is that a lot of people who have attained the kind of success that you have attained, when I talk with them, they can always point to someone who said something to them that inspired them because it gave them the idea that it could do more. And when I teach, for example, human behavior development, I also say to my students frequently that because human development occurs across the life cycle, you can always point to a time in your life when the trajectory of your life changed, when something happened and moved you in your direction. So now that you're here, I wonder if you have seen that teacher, who spoke to you and said, no, you must aspire to be better than us. That's what I was saying. You must aspire to be better than us. And so this is what you should be thinking. Have you seen him? Have you spoken to him over the last number of years?
Yeah, it's actually a she.
She.
Yes. I haven't seen her I think the last time I saw her, I was already a lecturer at the university, yes. So I did pay her, I went to her home in a different, she lives in Enugu in Nigeria, but then I was working in Oka. So I did go to Enugu to see her, and I think it was during the first year of my being a lecturer. Then I went to her house and spent time with her and her kids, and then she was very happy, and
Of
she felt
course.
fulfilled that that yeah. But I haven't seen her for so long now, and I really feel guilty. I think I should at least give her a phone call. I should find her number and give her a phone call. Yeah.
Yeah, that is wonderful. You see, your scholarship is really quite extensive, and not only is it so, it's also very impressive. But what have been the most important highlights of your journey as a scholar?
I've had many highlights. I've had really many highlights, but I would say the ones that stand out to me are really some, yeah, if I think about it, it's really, I will count the first day that I received a letter of appointment to become an academic staff at Nnamdi Azikiwe University. The day I received my appointment letter, it was very surreal. In fact, I cried from the admin office to I cried from there until I got home. Tears of joy and tears of, is this happening? In fact, I didn't tell a soul about the letter until 24 hours after. I went home, I didn't tell anybody, and I slept on that letter. I was just, I wanted to take in all of what that moment meant for me personally before I could tell a soul, before I could tell my mother, my siblings, anybody else. And for me, it was it was a dream come true, because although I had started my master's, I knew what I wanted. I knew the trajectory that I was going to, that I had in my head. I was very grateful that it could happen at the time it did. Thanks also to, like you said, I've been lucky to have teachers and mentors all along my journey. And so for that stage of my life, I'm lucky to have had one of my mentors then, Professor Keto Menoga, who was the HOD of the department, who also inspired me to apply for the job and supported me. Yeah. The second one was was the time I went for my first international conference in India, 2014. That's 10 years ago. Yeah, my first international conference. That was another landmark. Then also when I got the admission to go to South Africa for my PhD. And it was really a difficult decision to leave my job in Nigeria to go away, because you're leaving your comfort zone, you have a job and everything, and then you're leaving your comfort zone to go to a different country. But I did it. I decided to go the difficult route, because I envisaged that there is something greater on the other side, and I'm happy. I don't regret that decision. Also, when I got my postdoc by Carnegie, funded by Carnegie, and also when I got the permanent appointment that I'm doing now at Rhodes University in South Africa, and also the publication of my book. So these are the ones I can mention now, here and there.
Right. In all of this, I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about Hakeem Olajuwon, and I am assuming that you know who he is, maybe not. Hakeem Olajuwon is a Nigerian
Okay.
who at one time, I mean, he actually became at one time after Michael Jordan retired, the best player in the NBA. And he was the Houston Rockets giant, remains very highly respected by everyone. And I recall an interview with Hakeem Olajuwon where he said, and he's a Muslim. But one day he was asked by journalists, how come no matter what happens on the court, you're always a gentleman? You're never rude to anyone. You're always very polite. And he said, it is because whenever I step on the basketball court, I remember who gave me the talent. And I feel that even my play and everything that I do on the court is supposed to give him honor, that by playing, by doing what I do, I'm actually worshiping. So knowing that your dream was to become a priest, and now you're this person, do you feel that there is a connection between like
That's a
priesthood
very,
and
yeah,
what you do
that's a
now?
very interesting connection, and yeah, it's really very thoughtful of you to make the link. I would say yes, because I have grown up to be very spiritually minded, not religious. Well, of course, at some point I was very religious, but when I became my own person and transcended spiritually, I found that spirituality is more important to me than religiosity or religion. So yes, I'm very much connected to the divine. I believe in the divine. I believe in God, and I know without a doubt that my trajectory has been, supported and orchestrated by God. And like I said before, God puts people at different stages of my life to help me, to push me, to drive me. So I don't believe in a self-made person, a self-made man or woman or anyone. I believe that your life is an accumulation of someone's, many people's contribution, someone's words or kindness or recommendation here and there. No one is ever self-made. So I really want to say that yes, God has put different people at different stages of my life to help me and to support me to get to where I am. And I know the journey is still ahead. And I know that I'm very confident of the future because of that.
Yeah. So in trying to choose a focus in your academic journey, you chose to go the route of media studies, to specialize in media studies. I'm wondering what your motivation for that was.
I never knew that I could study media studies. I never wanted to study media studies. I went into media studies by accident. But in thinking back now, I know that it was a divine orchestration, like I was saying before. I wanted to study law. By the way, when I was in secondary school, finishing secondary school, I really had a very fierce battle with my mom and my aunt and family members. They wanted me to do sciences, to be in the sciences. But as young as I was then, I knew something in me just was telling me, no, sciences are not for you. Go for the arts. because your destiny is there. And I stuck my ground and I refused to go into sciences, although I was doing well in biology and chemistry. Only physics was my problem those days, but mathematics was also a problem. So in the end, I succeeded in staying in arts class, and then finished secondary school. And then, of course, those days, and even now, they will tell you, of course, you have to go for the professional courses. So if you've done arts, then you have to go to law. If you do sciences, medicine, engineering, and so on and so forth. So I decided to go for law, not really because I had passion for it, but because, well, the family has said that is the professional course. It's like like the embodiment of whatever. And then I went for it, but I wasn't successful in that. Did the jam, did the everything. I went into mass communication, that is media studies, by accident because a relative of mine was she was a lecturer in the department in mass communication at Nnamdi Azikiwe University, and then she suggested to my aunt for me to enroll for the diploma program, which they just started that year. Instead of me staying at home to write another jam, I should rather go for mass comm and then see what, yeah. That was what I did. And I wrote the entrance exam. I was the second best in that exam, and I got into the program, finished top of the class. I had distinction in the program, and then now went into direct entry into the BSc program. So that really was the way, how I got into mass communication. And thinking back now, it's divine. I love it, and I can't imagine myself doing law, even if even if someone gives me a scholarship to do it. No.
Right. I was going to ask you a question, about your challenges, but someone else just beat me to that. This person is watching from Nigeria, Christian Ohachu, and is asking me to ask you what challenges you faced in your journey to get to where you are today.
Of course, it's easy to celebrate the successes, but I can tell you that there have been many, many, many challenges, and many sleepless nights, many tears, and so it's a lesson in knowing that if you are on your journey, you must zero your mind and realize that nothing good ever comes easy. One. Secondly, whatever challenge or challenges you're going to face are going to make you a better person, and make you a stronger person even for what lies ahead. So for me, I would say that the challenges had been right from when I was young. I didn't come from a family that is very well to do or that had everything. My father died when I was 13 or 14 years. So my mother had to be the one to carry the family, 6 children alone. And so I went to university. I was working and I was studying at the same time to also fend for myself. So yeah, I started to struggle and be independent from very early on. I went to live with an aunt of mine. So I left home to go to Enugu to live with an auntie of mine, my mother's elder sister, lived with her for years, then finished secondary school, then entered, then got into university. Also at university, challenges with money. I had to work to support myself. And then so it's a lot. Even when I finished my BSc and finished my NYSC and began my master's program, thanks to my mom, who paid my first year fees for my master's. I didn't have a job. I was doing my master's right after BSc, NYSC, no job, no money, no nothing. And it was the head of department, my mentor, that mentor who encouraged me to apply for the job, that I was doing a PA for her, personal assistant. So I'll wake up every morning, I'll go to the department and do everything I can. Yeah, I help out with anything and everything I can. If she has an appointment, I'll follow her to the appointment. I'll take notes. I was just doing PA for the HOD, and she was paying me 8,000 naira those days. 8,000 naira per month. Master's student. I was doing my master's, no job. That's the money for my feeding. That's the money for like everything. 8,000 naira in those days. And I did that for 8 months before I got the appointment, to be a lecturer in that department, to be a junior lecturer in that department. And then after that, next stage of, the next stage, which was the years that I was at Nnamdi University as a lecturer, of course, there were many challenges too. I faced a lot of conflicts with colleagues, into departmental politics and all of that, which was very depressing. I almost gave up, but thank God I didn't. So up till now, the journey has not been easy, even though the outcomes and the successes are shiny and you're being celebrated, but it's not been easy. But I can't take anything away from my experience. I really, I'm grateful for that because it has made me the person that I am. So yeah, there have been challenges.
You have actually just given some sort of a clinical talk to young people. And I think it is significant that people understand, especially young people, understand that at the end, there is always an opportunity to have a great ending if you just persevere and work through the current circumstances. And that even when one sits on top of the world, it doesn't mean that they just got there without working very hard. And so I really commend you for doing all of that and finding yourself here and also still saying, despite all of those challenges, I am grateful even for the challenges. So now let's talk about your book. So let's talk about it, children and young people's digital life works. Why did you write it? That's the first question I want to know. And then I want to know what it's about.
Why did I write it? Oh, that's an important question. Okay, so this book it's a product of my my PhD research. So it was after the PhD examination when the feedback from the examiners came back. I had 3 examiners, one from Australia, one from Namibia, one from South Africa. And the recommendation, the overarching recommendation sort of became that this work is very important and needs, and so they recommended for it to be published into a book. So that became the vision that I had for the work after PhD. So then the next thing was to look for a publisher who can, give you a contract and then for that to, to be put in gear. So I finally arrived at working with Palgrave Macmillan because they also collaborate with one of the very top associations in our field, which is the International Association for Media and Communication Research. So I discovered that this association, that we have a book series that is published in conjunction with Palgrave Macmillan. So I wrote to the series editors and then pitched the book to them, and and then they put me in contact with the commissioning editor at Palgrave, and yeah, but it took time for me to get a contract. It took like 1.5 years from pitching to sending a sample chapter to sending the proposal, and for the proposal to go for review. to get to getting the contract signed. It took 1.5 years of back and forth, but I'm grateful that it happened. So yes, I decided to publish this because it from the recommendation of my PhD examination that it should be published, but also I really wanted to be able to give the research that I did with the young people in Nigeria more visibility than it just sitting in the library at University of Cape Town there, where I'm sure few people will read it. So I decided to turn it into a book that can be accessible to anyone, anywhere. Yeah.
So where can we find, I'll ask you this question again in the end, just to be clear, but right now, since I have it up there, where can we find the book to buy?
It's actually on many online platforms. It's on Amazon, it's on the publisher's site, it's on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Nobles. Yeah, it's really there are many of the online stores that are selling the
And
book.
someone yeah, this is Dr. Genti, your former colleague in Nigeria, has just said, congratulations on your new book. We are proud of your lofty achievements.
Thank you very much. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.
Right. In this book, you made a distinction between what you described as the minority world, quote, and the majority world. Please explain the terms and why did you classify Africa in the majority world category?
So minority world and majority world, there are the new, well, I wouldn't say it's new, but there has in recent years there has been a debate and controversy around using the word first world and third world, and then global south and global north. The idea of using minority world and majority world came from such debates to begin to rethink those terms because, of course, we came from talking about first world and third. I'm not sure anyone uses those terms anymore. They've become outdated. First world and third world because of improvements in scholarship and people pushing back. So, but then they went to global north to describe developed countries, and then global south to describe Africa and the rest. So majority world and minority world is the newest one that is coming from much heated debate. So the idea is that we need to base these differences, these geopolitical differences, not on being developed or not being developed. This, the idea of modernity and globalization, which is really much contested, but to base it on the population, because when you think about majority world is when you think about Africa being part of majority world, we are really talking about Africa, we're talking about other countries like India, China, and all the other countries in the so-called global south who have much more population than elsewhere. They have these countries and these regions have big populations and resources that are not really widely appreciated. So the idea is to call those countries majority world, and then minority world becomes America, Europe, and South America that are less in population. So that's where the idea comes from.
Right. Well, someone has asked me to ask you. I'm not sure I don't know if you have the answer to this. Is it possible to to have your books in schools across Nigeria and Cameroon if they were able to afford a lower rate?
Yeah, Yeah, part of the deal that I got from the publisher is that I can always get the book with a 40% discount. So anyone who wants the book can actually, I can give them my my discount code, and they can, they can get it for that discounted price. Because I think currently is still very expensive on those sites. But yeah, yes, I'm open to having a conversation about getting copies with discounted prices. Yeah, if
Yeah,
anyone is
okay, then
interested.
I'll put this person in touch with you, with Dr. Genti, so
Okay.
that we can work that out, because I think it's an important book for everyone to have and read because of some of the things that you discuss in this book, which I will get to very shortly. But first, how do you assess the digital divide in our world today in comparison with a decade or two ago?
Mm. I think it's unquestionable that the digital divide has been closing and closing. It's still there, but we can't compare the progress to even 10 years ago or 20 years ago. I think increasingly the majority world countries have seen improved digital connection. So the diffusion and uptake of digital technologies have been more pronounced. And yeah, there's the whole debate about technological optimism, the idea that technology is going to change, change this part of the world. And so governments um, in this region have been trying to invest in technology. And we're seeing also the power of mobile technology in giving people easier access to the internet and social media. So yes, the digital divide is closing, but it's still there. And another important thing to note is that when we talk about digital divide, there are so many levels or forms of digital divide. So initially, the discussion was on access as being the main digital divide. But now we're not just talking about access. We have first level digital divide, which is access and connection. But there is the second level and third level. In the second level, we're talking about divides based on skills and literacy. Okay, not a lot of people have the skills and the literacies to leverage on the opportunities of the digital landscape, even when they have access. Even when you have a mobile phone or a computer, you're connected to the internet, you don't have the full range of skills and literacies to enable you take full advantage of it. That's the second level. Then there's also the third level of digital divide, which is now the outcomes. The outcomes that you gain from being immersed in the digital world. So when we look at these three levels and compare that with different countries or different regions of the world, then yeah, you could see the differences, and that's where the divide. That's how the digital divide can be more comprehensively understood. But I think progress is being made, but we need more critical digital literacies. Yeah.
Right. It's interesting how you broke down the digital divide, those are 3 levels, and I think it's quite instructive. And then I'm wondering, this is a question that I had in mind as I was listening to you speak, but maybe I should pair it with another question that I had in mind, because you say that at that second level, there is the issue of skill, and that's where skill comes in. So I am wondering if that's one reason why in your book you talked about actors and users of media technology. And
Mm.
so you said in your research that Nigerian youths are more actors than users in that space. So my question then is, without taking us deep into the woods, my question is, does that role of Nigerian youths, and I'm sure it's not only Nigerian youths, but that's where your research, that's what your research was looking at mainly. So does the role of Nigerian youths as actors rather than users in the digital space bridge the digital divide in some way?
Yes.
And maybe you want to start by explaining to us what the distinction is between the actors.
Yes, yes. So the first thing I would say is that by young people in my book is meant adolescents, teenagers. So my book explores teenagers, their digital life world. So we're not talking about the whole range of young people, young adults and people who are about So for these teenagers that I looked at in my research, the idea of categorizing them as actors came about because of the conceptualization of the research around exploring this idea of agency, of young people in the digital world. So that simply means looking beyond seeing children or young people as just very passive users of technology, but and people who need to be controlled or be told what to do or how to use technology and stuff like that. So the argument that I made in my book was that children are increasingly born into the digital age, and they have become digital natives, although I know that that term is contentious, but they are born into this digital era. They have a natural propensity to be attuned to technology. Even kids that are like 1 year old or less than 1 year old know how to fiddle with a phone. There's really something there. People who have children, people who have little children will tell you that it's almost like magical how small children find their way around technology so easily, so seamlessly, so naturally. So they are not, so I began so I wanted to explore that idea of them having power and capability to as against seeing them as passive users who wait to be told what to do or to be taught how to do it. And so what my research proved was that seeing children or young people as active participators in their own digital life world is important, because then it takes away this idea of, oh, the internet is going to spoil you, mobile phone is too bad for you, this whole moral panic thing, which is understandable and acknowledged. Two things can exist side by side each other at the same time. It can be true that children and young people are that they face some issues online and that we should be careful and all of that. It can be true. But on the other side, it's also true that these young people are experts in their own lives. They're experts in their own digital life, and they know more about the digital technologies that are out there, much more than the people that we describe as digital immigrants, people who are not born into the digital age, people like their parents and their their relatives, their teachers, who relate with them with a moral panic lens. Whenever you speak about technology and young people and children, the whole idea is to go into moral panic mode. Oh, don't use technology. Technology is bad. It's going to spoil you. It's blah, 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 blah. And what they do is counterproductive, because when the moral panic rant is over, no one takes the time to then sit the kids down and give them a proper digital education. The drawbacks of different social media platforms, how to spot fake news, for example, how to know when something is fake, and those kind of skills that they need to navigate the digital world. Nobody gives them that kind of education. And so many times, even the young people become digital assistants in their homes. When their parents ask them to fix something on their phone, oh, I don't know how this happened. My computer is not working anymore. Please, can you come and help? My phone did this. Can you come and fix my WhatsApp? They become digital assistants. Yet we say that they are not, that they don't have power, that technology is too much for them. No. So that was my argument in seeing it as an empowering tool for the young people, but the problem is that they lack digital skills and literacies to take full advantage. But even then, they are actors rather than users because they are experts in their own digital life.
I think this part of the discussion is very important for many reasons. One of them is that it helps us to see, at least from where I sit, listening to you. It has helped me to see, for example, what we are missing when we focus so much on the morality of how new media are used by such young people, because we focus on what we think the outcome is. And so we judge the outcome on moral basis, whereas the outcome is beyond that limited window through which we look at it. I think that's one of the points that you're making. But I also like the fact that you're talking about how we, instead of doing that, we'll be talking about how to empower the kids, because you introduced into the conversation the concept of agency. And so because of that, I'm also thinking that there is possibly a policy perspective to what you're discussing. So it seems to me then that now that we are talking about agency, talking about outcomes and skills and what we are missing, the question then is, what is the role of society in developing empowering systems that can enhance and support the status of these young people in our world?
I will really say that empowering young people in the in this digital world requires a whole of society approach. A whole of society approach means that everyone has to be involved. First, we need to get to the basics. I discovered during my research that many schools in the areas I looked at, FCT Abuja and also Anambra State. Many schools that I went to speak with young people, they don't have something as common as a computer lab, or whatever they call it. They don't even teach them about computer. And on top of that, they are restricted, prohibited from bringing in any kind of technology to school. And even some of the schools that had some sort of aesthetic computer lab, you find that nobody goes in there. There were some computers just for the optics, I think, but nobody goes in there, nobody uses them, and the students are not taught anything about computers or technology. And it was really a very stark realization about how much we need to do from the grassroots. So the government ministries of education, for example, in Nigeria, need to take the idea of digitization very seriously, not just in terms of infrastructure. The infrastructure has to be there. Schools have to be, have to take the idea of digital infrastructure seriously, having computers and, the hardware forms of technology in place, like computers or tablets, but also fixing internet. But also in terms of curriculum, what is taught the young people, there should be a space in the curriculum to teach them about digital skills that are necessary. even and the reality is that many of them use mobile phones. Many of them use technology outside of the school, but nobody then teaches them the right way or some of the things to be wary of when they're using technology. Nobody teaches them at home. They're not taught at school. They're not taught. So who teaches them? They learn from each other. They learn from older adults elsewhere that they meet elsewhere. So there's a lot that needs to be done. And also in my book, I have series of recommendations in terms of policy. I have recommendations in terms of practice. I have recommendations in terms of what I call Nigeria-specific directions. So ministries of, different ministries are digitizing in Nigeria, but the Federal Ministry of Education is not, I don't think they are doing a lot in terms of digitizing schools. So yeah, I can go on, and then more research needs to be done by scholars and researchers who should really study more about the digital life worlds of young people, because research in this area is very, I think my book might be the first one that looks at this, because even when I was doing the PhD research since 2016, I saw very little about children, young people in Nigeria and technology. So I think, yeah, it's really a gap that needs to be filled from the side of policy, from the side of infrastructure, from the side of curriculum, from the side of policy, from the side of research. Yeah.
You know, my next question really dovetails from that, but I don't want to ignore a question that someone uh, is asking. The question really is that I'm going to try to rephrase it because you have already addressed it, but there's a piece of it. Is there possibly a concern among policymakers that the technology, learning through technology or using technology the way that you're describing, and traditional learning should not coexist or cannot coexist? Is there some concern among policymakers, which is why they're not actively doing it?
I don't think that's the reason why they're not doing it. I think it's just the lack of political will to do things. And we see that not just in education, but in all the spheres of life in Nigeria. It's just the lack of political will for politicians to back things like this and to implement things. So I think it's a wider question of implementation problem that Nigeria has, but not just that, also the idea of leadership. Whose responsibility is it to make things happen? And does that person have the political will to push for those things to be done and to do all they can to make it work? So I know that Nigeria has a center called NITDA, National Information Technology something something, that was established by the federal government, and and it was established because of the need to, to digitize and to help Nigeria become one of them, become, in terms of to help Nigeria come up or to grow in terms of digital economy. So NITDA, I've worked with them when I work with them on AI policy. So they are there and they're doing all these things about digitization. But I think that most of the work they are doing I don't know about implementation. They're doing it at a very high level, but these conversations should be taken to the grassroots. If we are talking about digitizing schools, then it has to go from federal to state to local governments and then to rural areas. So it's a multi-level problem that needs to be addressed from top to bottom. And that's why I said that it's a whole of society approach that needs to be adopted.
Well, you are a very high profile, internationally recognized scholar all over the world. And so my question is, and you're a Nigerian, So, and so my question is, how is your scholarship received in Africa? And that's one question. And the other question is is a comparative question. You are a Nigerian, but you're not based in Nigeria. You're based in South Africa. So how is your scholarship received in South Africa vis-a-vis Nigeria? I
I
don't
wish,
want to get you in trouble. I don't want to start a fight between South Africa and Nigeria because I know they both love you, but this is about scholarship.
yeah. I mean, I wish I know the answer to that question. I have not actively thought about it. But because I'm based here, maybe I don't know. Maybe it's more, my scholarship is more appreciated this side than in Nigeria. I know I left since 2016. That's 8 years ago. But of course I still have a professional and academic, tentacles and connections in Nigeria. I still have colleagues that I work with, that I research and publish with. But because I'm based here in South Africa, I would like to think that my scholarship may be more appreciated here than in Nigeria. I've not actually attended a Nigerian-based conference in years, since 2015. So that's also maybe the reason. So I think that maybe there's a disconnect between myself and the professional associations there, because yeah, going for conferences is one of the ways that you connect with peers and the community in particular places. So I've not gone to a conference in Nigeria in a long time, in almost a decade. So I don't know, maybe that's eh,
I
yeah,
can
that's
I can relate.
yeah.
I can relate to that. So finally, what is next for your journey in in the world of scholarship?
Oh, I I really don't like to preempt what is next. I like to tell myself, just continue to work hard, do your bit, and then leave the rest to God. Although I have dreams, more dreams and more aspirations about the future, but I really have decided to take my journey one day at a time. Because for most of my life, I have suffered from anxiety, anxiety and personally induced pressure, pressure you put on yourself to succeed and do everything right, perfectionism and stuff. So in this phase of my life, I'm trying to relax, I'm trying to take it easy, I'm trying to enjoy the successes that I've had already, and to just leave everything in the hands of the divine to channel what comes next and to channel me towards that path. So yeah, but I'm very positive of what is to come.
Thank you very much for spending your time with us. I know it's a bit late in South Africa. What time is it now? It's about 6 p.m.
Yes, seven
Okay.
minutes at 6 p.m. Yeah.
Yes, so it's not that late. But I thank you very much for joining us and for spending this time. I have learned a lot, and I'm sure that a lot of people who've been watching us, and I like to make sure that people get that book because it's very important. So I am also going to spread the word and donate. And but again, thank you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you
This
so
is not
much.
but you have to promise me before you go that this is not the last time we'll talk.
No, it will not be the last time.
All right, then.
If
I
you if
also will.
if you ask me next time to jump, I'll ask, how high do you
Oh,
want it?
thank you very much. So, thank you very much. And what I'd like to do, because you have been so magnanimous, I am going to work on having a forum of
Okay.
young people. where, if you don't mind, I would like you to be the person at the center, like a town hall, where
Yeah.
you speak about technology,
Mm.
because you have clearly expressed what we all know is true, that there's that lack of education as
Mm.
far as use of technology. So
Yeah.
maybe a 1 hour forum on a weekend where we have a lot of young people from different parts of Africa, and
Yeah.
you'll be the guest to talk about technology and have them ask questions. Let's plan that for next month, if you don't mind.
Okay.
May or June.
If okay.
June.
June, I'm traveling. I might be traveling a bit.
Okay.
I have a couple of conferences, but if you send me a
Sometime in
date,
the summer. All right.
okay, yeah. If you send me a date, then I can confirm if it's okay. Yeah.
Wonderful. So let's do that.
Mm. Okay.
Thank you very much. I have a comment. This is from the United States. Thanks to you, and this was very interesting and thought-provoking.
Thank you for
I
having me.
echo that completely.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to all the people who joined and watched and asked questions live. Yeah.
Thank you. So have a good evening. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.